Welcome to Policy on Demand's Week in Review. I'm Andrew Pryor. It was another week of fast-paced policy developments that added to the uncertainty facing companies. Yesterday afternoon, President Trump walked back tariffs on Canada and Mexico for another 4 weeks. This after implementing them on Tuesday and subsequently announcing a 1-month exemption for automakers. Earlier this week, he imposed an additional 10% tariff on imports from China. That's on top of the 10% tariff imposed earlier this year. Finally, he confirmed plans to begin imposing reciprocal tariffs on April 2nd. Also on Tuesday, President Trump addressed a joint session of Congress, touting his accomplishments during the first 6 weeks of his second term, describing it as swift and unrelenting action, and laying out his agenda and goals for the future. Among other things, the president renewed his call for permanent extension of the 2017 tax cuts, no tax on tipped income, overtime pay, and Social Security benefits, and a tax deduction for interest on auto loans for U.S. manufactured vehicles. He also proposed a reinstatement of 100% bonus depreciation, retroactive to January 20th, 2025, Inauguration Day, and tax incentives to promote domestic manufacturing and the U.S. shipbuilding industry. And if you're wondering about timing of tax legislation and when we might see the details of proposed tax law changes, you're not alone. The House and Senate still need to adopt a final budget resolution before tax legislation can be considered under budget reconciliation procedures. The House and Senate need to resolve a number of key issues, and it might be late March or early April before they vote on a final budget resolution. That's the House and Senate budget resolution. Committee action on budget reconciliation legislation might slip into May because of a scheduled 2-week recess starting in mid-April. And how quickly could this all come together? Republican tax writers are meeting privately to develop tax reconciliation legislation and could be ready to act quickly. House GOP leaders continue to discuss sending a final budget reconciliation bill to the president's desk by Memorial Day. A more realistic timeline, however, may be sometime this summer. Congress also is focused on preventing a government shutdown, facing a March 14th deadline when a short-term government funding measure expires. Talks between the two parties on a government funding agreement have stalled, so Republicans are preparing to vote on a year-long continuing resolution, or CR, to fund the federal government through the end of the current fiscal year, which ends September 30th. Democratic votes are required in the Senate to get the 60 votes required to pass a CR, and those votes may be needed in the House if just a few Republicans oppose the CR. And if the year-long CR fails, Congress could consider another short-term CR. Finally, you may have heard reports of significant additional workforce cuts at the IRS, which we're keeping an eye on and will have more as developments unfold. A link to an earlier episode on the more than 6,000 IRS employees laid off is included in the description of this episode. Take care, and we'll see you next week.